does that game, and yeah, I think that's just part of the game, and I enjoy that part of the game. Honestly, obviously that game was not super enjoyable, but if it was personal, I mean, he's the only one that can speak to that. But I'll take that as a compliment. I'd say, yeah.
This aspect of the read and react, practicing without dribbling, all of the stuff that gets taught in international countries versus how kids, I think, grow up playing in 90% of youth programs in the United States. It seems like there's a big adjustment when U.S. players go and play in FIBA.
Mhm.
Offensively, defensively. Is there anything specific because you've lived now in both, obviously. Is there anything specifically that you think is the hardest part for an American player going to play in a World Cup or an Olympics against a really good international team?
I mean, I think you could see it a little bit. I think if you look at that semifinal game, you look at the two teams on paper, there's no question who should win, right? Well, I think you can see there's some situations where like somebody on the German team, if it's me, if it's Dennis, another player, there's some tough buckets being made, but the gist of why we won is simple basketball, getting a switch, how do you duck in, feeding the post, playing out of that, cutting off the ball. Like it's not the crazy schemes, it's not crazy individual play. You need some of that too in FIBA, especially at the end of games. But I think that's the biggest difference like in terms of how we played. And I mean, it's like anything else. The American players, the NBA players aren't necessarily super used to that style of play, so it's hard for them to adjust in those moments.
One thing I observed, and this wasn't just the German team. I think there's a number of teams that did this well in the World Cup. But, let's say you have an ATO in the NBA. By the way, I'm not complaining about any of this. I'm just pointing out some things I've observed that are different. That's all. Let's say there's a ATO in the NBA after timeout play. You might try to get a matchup, right? All right, we're going to run a step up on the right side, and we're going to get so-and-so to switch on Tatum. Or we might say all right, we're going to have Tatum at the top, and D. White's going to bring his man up and ghost screen Tatum to his right hand. Let's see what happens, right? The scripted plays for these fucking teams in FIBA, it's like 5 different actions to get to one last thing that's what you're actually looking for. That, to me, was the craziest thing to watch. And again, not a knock on Steve Kerr. I'm just pointing this out. You watched our ATOs or our set pieces, and it was like 2 very different things. It was like watching 2 different sports at times.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the coaching piece, I think it's just a very different approach to how to coach and, how to just approach the game, I would say. I will say that that's something that, I had to, I re-noticed, I would say, because I grew up playing like that. Then I went to college. We played different. In the NBA, we played different. And when I came back from my first year for a national team, I was like, yo, this is nice. This is a lot of fun to play like this because it makes, if you can execute those plays, you don't need to make step-back threes and make tough shots all game. Like I said, I think you do need that at the end of the game sometimes, but that part of thinking the game and how coaches can set up players and make them look really, really good. I think that part is really fun of the FIBA game.
I'm going to ask you a question, and this is just a question. This is not meant to offend anyone, okay? Do you think that some of the reason we don't have that in our game is maybe, I think naturally in the U.S. there's more of an individual mentality, and I think we praise scorers. We praise tough bucket getters. And truthfully, some of these motherfuckers are so good that you don't need to run 4 misdirections to create a good shot on offense. And I mean, even with this USA basketball team, they practiced for 2 weeks. They went and played a few exhibition games. Obviously, it didn't work out for us, but we were still in games.
Right.
Playing that way. It wasn't like we were getting blown out by 50. You know, so I think some of it is just like the overall talent. This is not. I'm saying overall, top to bottom. You said on paper, right? 1 through 12, probably more talented, and so there's not that like desire, like need to like, oh, we got to play this way. Now it bit us in the ass for sure.
Well, I want to point one thing.
Oh yeah,
And this might be an unpopular opinion, but this is not the first tournament where this has happened.
I agree.
Like, even if Team USA won in past years, that was still very apparent. Even the legendary Kobe Bryant 2008 team, you can look back, I don't know what it was, but they didn't win the final by 20 points. They won by like 6 or 8 against Spain, who started Ricky Rubio, who's 17. I mean, that Spanish team is probably the epitome of what we just talked about, like in terms of how European teams grow up playing. And so I'm not like the U.S. players individually. Like there's no argument who's the most talented country in basketball. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't. I by the way, I think the gap for probably most every guy on your team and an NBA roster spot, if they so desired, is like this or this. Yep. Like that part of it is. I wasn't trying to knock the talent. I actually promised myself this was going to be a rant-free podcast, and it's going to be. But I will know it's going to be. But I do want to point out that was the one thing that really got me heated. The reaction at home here was like, "Oh, we're supposed to be winning. We're supposed to be winning," and I'm like, "No, guys! Like since like '96, it's always been hard.
Right.
These teams, you guys have." Like caught up to us. You've caught up to us, and you're better than us in some ways.
Isn't that
just
the
truth?
Isn't that kind of just like people that don't know basketball history, though? I mean, we talk about this, but it's just like this is like to your point. This is not new. The question I had for you about your particular team and also what we're talking about is the connectivity with this particular roster and how long you guys have. I mean, so how long with most of these guys, Mo aside, did you play together with them for?
Well, I only played with one guy, like when I was younger, that was on that team. And this was only the second time that I was on the men's national, like the senior national team. But the core of those guys, they've been playing together probably 5-6 years, I would say. Yeah, maybe even longer. Dennis has been playing since 2013, something like that. Yeah.
Because this would be, I mean, not that you want to fix USA basketball, but it feels like a massive problem with USA basketball is it's different players every time.
Yeah, I mean, the whole approach to that, I think, is different. I'm not.
Oh yeah.
Like it's just a different thing. Like when we play European championships, like it's just a pride thing to be able to represent the country. And it's every year like that. Like I'm already excited to go play with them again because it's just a different vibe. It's none of the playing for money, playing for stats. It's very like it just feels like old classmates coming together for a summer and we're having a good time.
What did it mean for you, for your team, to win that gold medal?
I can't even put it into words. Like I don't think people from here understand like how big the gold medal was for not just the players that played, but for the whole German basketball community. Like when I grew up, like it's not a thing to think about that we might win one of those tournaments. Like it's just not. You don't even think about it. It's like, oh, it's cool to like get a medal, or it's cool to play for a medal, but you don't grow up thinking that you might win the whole thing.